Everyone is obsessed with Avatar: The Last Airbender right now, so Nickelodeon decided to gift us all with the unaired pilot, and we have to talk about it. So let's take an adventure all the way back to the ancient time known as 2002, which definitely wasn't almost 20 years ago. Mike DiMartino and Brian Konietzko had the green light to make a new series for Nickelodeon, but they didn't quite know what it was yet. They knew they wanted a bald protagonist with an arrow on his head, a world steeped in lore, and a darker tone than most of the Nicktoons of that day. This all led to Konietzko and DiMartino blending up all of their mostly formed ideas into a low-budget production that went on to become Avatar's unaired pilot. Well, unaired until now, that is. Thanks to Nickelodeon, we can all watch the very first Avatar without having to buy a DVD box set. All in all, the pilot's not that bad. It features most of the aspects of Avatar that we know and love. It begins with Aang, Sokka, and Katara, Kaya as she used to be named, flying to the North Pole with Zuko in literally hot pursuit. Pretty much all of the pieces are in place for what would become an excellent series. We see the gang get away from Zuko's initial attacks only for them to stop at an island to rest. Kaya trains herself in waterbending while Sokka obsesses about food. Then Aang goofs things up right before Zuko arrives to capture his friends. Then Aang and Zuko have one of their iconic air versus fire duels before Aang briefly Avatar states it up, saving the day. It's a pretty lovely episode, even ending with a hilarious bit where Aang falls off of Appa. What's interesting about the unaired pilot is how much of it actually aired in the series. For example, the sea monster that they're attacked by is the exact same sea monster from the Serpent's Pass, though Aang's confrontation with the serpent is also reminiscent of the Unagi from the Warriors of Kyoshi. We also see Kaya going through the exact same journey that Katara does in the waterbending scroll. In that, Katara has to learn how to use her waterbending in a more tactical manner, kinda like how she does at the end of the pilot. Speaking of, if you didn't notice, Zuko has a bird very similar to the pirate captain's iguana parrot from that episode. It even gets into the same kind of fight with Momo, although the Momo from the pilot doesn't have the skill that our Momo does. The real Momo is a beast. While we're on the subject of fights, Aang and Zuko's confrontation in the episode is also very familiar. That's because the concept was reused in Return to Omashu, only with Azula instead of Zuko going up against Aang. The end of the fight where Aang saves Zuko at the last minute is also reminiscent of him doing the same thing during their famous The Blue Spirit team-up. What might be more interesting, though, are the aspects that didn't make it into the series. The opening intro features the same exploration of the elements used in Avatar, but from three very different characters. While the earth and water characters look like early prototypes for Master Paku and the Boulder, the Firebender looks like something else entirely. Her bold makeup and cold precision make her seem like she's some sort of beautifully horrifying mixture of both Princess Azula and Avatar Kyoshi. I don't know how or when, but you guys definitely need to use this character in a future Avatar spin-off. I need to know what's up with Kizula. The most notable cameo from the introduction to the pilot was the statue behind Aang. That's right, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but that is for sure the lion turtle that gives Aang his big epiphany right before the showdown with Ozai. We had to wait all the way till book 3 for him to show up, and he was almost in the intro. Overall, the pilot isn't perfect, but it's not bad either. It's certainly better than that infamous Wonder Woman pilot that they will literally never let you see. Let's just say it's no Wonder Woman 1984. Okay, now that we've gone through all the nice things about the unaired pilot, it's time for a segment I'm gonna call That's Not My Avatar, Number 1. So obviously, you've got to talk about that Fire Nation armor before anything else. I felt like Sokka staring at the bizarre Fire Nation army the Northern Water Tribe thought was accurate. Zuko looks less like an imposing force and more like he's auditioning to play the Red Ranger in Power Rangers Dino Charge. What's with the tiny teeth that are all over the armor? If those are like literal dragon teeth, I suppose it's pretty cool conceptually. Design-wise, though, it just looks silly. I am definitely happy that the Fire Nation soldiers decided to go for that Stormtrooper cosplay that we all know and love. Number 2. The voice acting in this episode was all over the place. I just want to say that I love Dante Bosco. Whether we're talking Rufio, Zuko, or American Dragon Jake Long, Bosco is a straight-up star. That being said, his performance was a little much, even by Zuko standards. If Zuko's level of intensity is usually like a 9 9 or a 9.5, Pilot Zuko's intensity was a 17 at all times. The same can be said for Sokka, honestly. While it took the series a while to find Sokka's likable, sarcastic energy, the pilot had him depicted as a real jerk. He wasn't so much funny as he just was mean, criticizing his sister's waterbending as some sort of silly game she was playing. This really doesn't make sense in a world where bending is literally the most powerful thing in the world. Jack DeSanta, you are a gem, but you didn't quite have it yet. The most notable change was definitely Aang's, though. That's because he was voiced by Mitchell Musso instead of Zach Tyler. While Musso did a fine job as Aang, his performance really made me appreciate the wild, childlike joy that Tyler injects into every line that Aang has. It really is irreplaceable. Mae Whitman, however, proved that it doesn't matter what her character's name is, she's gonna nail it just like she did with Scott Pilgrim's face. Aside from the name change, Kaya is 100% the Katara that we see in the rest of the franchise. It's no wonder that they recycled her name for both Katara's mother and daughter. Number 3. Aang being able to master the Avatar state in Episode 1 pretty much ruins the tension for the entire series. I mean, what's the point of learning all the elements in the first place if you can use your Super Saiyan form at any time? This seems to be a problem that even the writers took to heart. They not only made the Avatar state more inaccessible to Aang, they also made it more dangerous. Having the entire Avatar cycle vulnerable during the Avatar state really balanced out the entire concept. Way to improve that on the second draft, guys. Number 4 is, and I cannot stress this enough, the most important point. Where was Uncle Iroh? Seriously, we almost had a world where the beauty that was Avatar existed, but with none of Mako's incredible performance as the Dragon of the West? Can you imagine a world where the song Leaves from the Vine never happened? Of course you can't. Your mind literally won't let you. Still, I would rather have no Iroh than the terrible Iroh imposter that we got in The Last Airbender. Take that message to heart, Netflix. We can compromise on a lot of things, but you better get Uncle Iroh 100% perfect for that adaptation. Anything less is completely unacceptable. So I think we can all agree that the creators of Avatar really spun gold out of this failed pilot. They took all the concepts, the music, the style, and fun that worked from it, and they left behind what didn't. The show that followed went on to become one of the single greatest television shows, animated or otherwise, ever made. Still, I can't help but wonder what this show would have looked like if this pilot would have actually started the show. You know what? Let's dive into that alternate world to see what Avatar would have looked like. It'll be kind of like watching the Snyder Cut, only not 4 hours long. Largely, I think the first season would have been the same. The pilot definitely feels like a Book 1 chapter with its much more Nick-friendly tone and easily distinguishable good guys and bad guys. I think that while the series would have been fun, it would have featured more episodes like The Great Divide than anything else. Sure, that episode is pretty good, but the self-contained, easily solved story has little in common with the complex and terrifying political intrigue of Ba Sing Se. It's kinda hard to imagine the pilot's universe ever featuring the Dai Li and their creepy brainwashing antics. No, I think this Avatar would have been a lot more like a Nicktoon. Sure, it probably would dive deeper into darker territory now and then, but I think it would have kept things pretty light. For that matter, I can't imagine that we would have gotten much of a Zuko redemption arc in this universe either. In our Avatar, Zuko was torn between the harsh standards of his father and the compassionate wisdom of his uncle. Those dueling forces in Zuko's mind led him to do terribly dark things, but also led to him training the Avatar to defeat his own father. Zuko went on to become a sweet, sensitive, socially awkward dude. To think, we may have never gotten the moment where Sokka explains that his ex became the moon, only for Zuko to say, "That's rough, buddy." What would Avatar memes even look like in this crazy parallel world? I imagine the entire series would have just followed the Book 1 formula all the way to the end. Aang would have just traveled all over the world, getting into adventures while picking up bending techniques along the way. In Book 2, he likely would have met a bending teacher in Ba Sing Se, fought off a Fire Nation invasion, and then made his way into the Fire Nation. Then he would have faced the Fire Lord while Kaya took down Zuko for an easy win to a lighthearted franchise. Of course, this could all be completely wrong. As we all know, the original concept for what would have been Azula and Kyoshi was somehow much more terrifying than what we got. It's entirely possible that this alternate universe could have ended with Phoenix Queen Kizula reigning over the entire world as it burns under her righteous fire for all eternity. Well, it's still a better ending than Game of Thrones. That does seem like a lot of fun, but it's nowhere near the masterpiece we got in the end. This makes me really appreciate the way the show threw its own formula out the window with Zuko's fugitive status, the kidnapping of Appa, and the long and complex Ba Sing Se arc. It also makes me appreciate all the careful work the writers did on making Zuko a relatable character from the earliest episodes. It made his redemption both surprising and somehow inevitable. Ultimately, by charting out the show this pilot sells, you figure out what's missing. The pilot had all the bells and whistles of Avatar, but it was missing that special ingredient that makes us love it so much: the heart. What makes this show so much more than just cool bending fights and funny animal sidekicks is the deep spirituality and compassion that permeates every single episode. The show dives headlong into each character's hopes, fears, strengths, and weaknesses. Other shows have cool fights, impressive worlds, and interesting lore. Not every show has characters that feel like real people. That's why not every show can be Avatar. Well, there you have it, our analysis of Avatar's unaired pilot. What did you think of the episode? What do you think that show would have been like? Could you have lived with an Avatar with no Uncle Iroh? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to CBR for more Avatar action.